Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
I have to tell you, I didn't think they'd actually do it. I didn't think McConnell would actually do it. I thought when a moment of truth came, they'd find some out for not going nuclear, but they're going to do it. They're going to go nuclear, and the Democrats are running around acting like a bunch of stuck Trumps. Well, they think Trump's a pig, so Anyway, I'm going to give you all the data on this that you need to understand what's going on, because the Democrats are lying through their teeth about every aspect of this. And then we also have Devin Nunes, the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, has temporarily stepped down because of a series of complaints lodged against him by left-wing activist groups, that would be Obama and George Soros, the House Ethics Committee, claiming that he mishandled intelligence by showing it to Donald Trump, the President of the United States. Now, Matt Lewis, grab audio soundbite number 2. This is the only version of this I've heard that's different, is Matt Lewis, who was on CNN today on their newsroom program, and he's got a different theory about why Nunes is gone, and it's all about Paul Ryan. It's not about the Ethics Committee business. And I have to tell you, this ethics, John Koskinen's still at the IRS. Obama's guy that ran political scams and directed them against conservatives is still at the IRS. We don't know what the hell's going on with Bannon, but they're celebrating like they've scalped Bannon, even though he's still there, and claiming that all of this is much ado about nothing. Jeff Sessions has recused himself from the Russian investigation for no reason whatsoever. They're trying to neuter Bannon, and they got rid of Devin Nunes. This is exactly what I meant yesterday when I was talking about we're in the middle of a quasi-civil war. And that is, there is no respect for authority by the Democrats, the authority represented by the Constitution. The only authority that they respect is their own. And do you think Adam Schiff, pencil neck, would resign if the Democrats ran this committee and if there were ethics complaints? No, they would trash the ethics committee. And they would claim it's nothing more than a political witch hunt, and pencil neck wouldn't be going anywhere. And an Obama attorney general would not have recused himself. This is why people on our side get demoralized in what should be the afterglow of victory. We run around acting like we still have to behave so as to show the American people that we're honorable and trustworthy with power. I share your feelings, folks. It gets frustrating here with all this. Plus, when you add to it that many people thought this was among the kind of things that are going to end with Donald Trump winning the presidency and being in the White House. But anyway, we'll come back and unpack all those things and others, because this filibuster business of Senate, there's an element here of it that the Democrats, they're going to rue that they did this. And the way to understand this filibuster business is very simple. All that is happening today is that the Senate is being returned to the rules that lasted for 100 years prior to 2003. The judicial filibuster was invented by the Democrats in 2003. Maybe it's 2013. This could be a typo. Regardless, the point is, there was no filibuster. It's not even mentioned in the Constitution. It's a Senate rule. The Senate can make whatever rules it wants. The Democrats, I just listened to Dick Durbin, they're talking about decades and centuries of Senate tradition being wiped aside by these evil Republicans. The Republicans didn't do anything but stand aside while the Democrats changed the rules. And so all that's happening is that Democrat rules that created filibustering judicial nominees are now being removed. That's all that's happening. The Senate is being returned to normal. That's all that's happening. There is no great earthquake happening here. The Senate is not being forever undermined and changed. But that's the media's story, and so the Democrats are going along with it. The media is devising all this strategy, and they're showing, by virtue of controlling the news, how the Democrats should act and what the Democrats should say. But anyway, here's Matt Lewis, who was on CNN Newsroom today, John Berman, speaking with, he's at the Daily Beast. Now, Matt Lewis used to be, where did he used to be? Matt Lewis used to be some conservative outlet somewhere. Matt Lewis is among those, and I say this with great affection. Please do not anybody send this guy emails. Please don't. He's one of the guys that claimed I was a conservative sellout for not killing off Trump during the campaign, or some such thing. But anyway, he's on CNN, and he's from the Daily Beast now, which was Tina Brown's creationist. Daily Caller, that's what Chatsworth Osborne Jr.'s outfit. I knew that's where it was. Daily Caller, Daily Beast. Sometimes you get callers and beasts confused, even though a beast can be calling you. But in this case, the beast is the Libs and the caller is Chatsworth, who's on leave from his website because now he's got his Fox show. So anyway, the question here, one of the things that Devin Nunes always said is his feeling that there were people in the Obama regime were improperly, questionably unmasking officials in the Trump campaign. All of a sudden this week, there's the reporting that Susan Rice may have unmasked names of Trump associates. By the way, this is getting hairier, too. There's a name that I mentioned. I'm sorry for interrupting myself here, but I do this so that I don't forget this later on. There's a name that's been conspicuously missing in all of this talk of unmasking and surveilling and all that. You know what that name is? It's John Brennan, Obama's CIA director, who is a partisan leftist. I think I read the other day, he has converted to Islam. Our CIA director had converted to Islam. I haven't been able to confirm. I've seen it in one place. But his name has been totally absent all of this, and I think he's in the thick of it. But anyway. So here's the question. All of a sudden, there's the reporting that Susan Rice may have unmasked names of Trump people. And that's now public after Chairman Nunes kept it secret for a long time. After it's public, he then steps aside. Doesn't make sense. Why is Nunes stepping aside here, Matt?
I don't understand the timing. The one thing that I do think is interesting and possibly important here is, remember how, Mike Flynn was taken down not because of the communication with Russia, but because he misled the vice president, Mike Pence.
Yeah.
It appears that Nunes may have misled the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan. Remember, he didn't tell Paul Ryan that the information he received came from the White House. He said that it came from a whistleblower type person. So he very well may have misled Paul Ryan, the Speaker of the House, the one guy who could push him off.
Okay, so that's an entirely different take on this. Matt Lewis of the Daily Caller, the Daily Beast, formerly of the Daily Caller, claims that Nunes didn't quit on his own, and it has nothing to do with these left-wing groups harassing the Ethics Committee. It is that Ryan forced him out of there because Nunes wasn't straight with Ryan. So, to repeat, Matt Lewis says it appears that Nunes may have misled Ryan. Remember, he didn't tell Ryan the information he received came from the White House when he went up to the executive office building. He told Ryan that it came from a whistleblower type person. So he may have misled Ryan, who said, you don't mislead me, just like Flynn doesn't mislead Pence. And you know what happened to Flynn, so see you later, Nunes. That's Lewis's theory. Haven't seen that anywhere else. The theory that is carrying the day, the drive-by media, is that Nunes temporarily stepped down to avoid becoming a distraction, what with all these claims from left-wing groups to the Ethics Committee. Now, those are not going to stop, so I don't know. And by the Ethics Committee moves at a snail's pace. And Congress is only going to be working 8 days in April, so when is this going to get resolved? By the way, Trump's upset with his 8 days business. Trump, they're trying to really hurry this health care revival, and I'm going to tell you something about that. The story in the stack here says that Pence has taken over the directorship, the energy behind the movement of the health care bill, from Paul Ryan. Nothing conspiratorial about it. It's just that Pence has now adopted it, taken over, and is the force behind it. I think that the vice president has been involved in this at a very high level from the get-go, and I don't think it's anything different that he's involved in it now. It's good that Pence is involved in this, so don't anybody misunderstand. But they're trying to push this and get something done here quickly, and Trump is deriding them for only working 8 days in April, and is trying to push them into a little bit more effort than 8 days. So we'll have to see. While Nunes is gone now from the chair, and by the way, Mike Conway and Trey Gowdy are effectively going to be the new. Well, Conway's the chairman, and Gowdy is now second in command on the Intel Committee, and they're good. You know, Gowdy is a former prosecutor, knows exactly what he's doing. The investigation isn't going to suffer. That's not the point here. The point is that we keep taking our players off the field. They don't. We won. This is why people on our side get demoralized and don't quite understand this. And I'm with you on it. I didn't understand Sessions' recusal. Wow. I understand why he was doing it. All these wrong reasons, which we have to show our virtue because we agree our virtue is in question because what the media says about us. We have to prove we're fair and totally above board. We're not going to score any points on that. It's like the Democrats are making their own miscalculation on this filibuster. I have it on good authority why they're really doing this. This goes a long way to establishing one of my new theorems, and that is that the Democrats are an arm of the media, not the media an arm of the Democrats. I have it on good authority that the Democrats, because of counseling with the media, actually believe that they can convert McConnell triggering the nuclear option into electoral victory in 2018. I kid you not. There has been all this speculation, which politics is filled with people. It's kind of like in football, the analysts and experts who analyze each week's game with the point spread straight up, analyze this matchup, that matchup, and nobody knows the hell of anything of what they're talking about because the game hadn't started yet. So you get all these predictions based on what you have on paper is what might happen, and politics is filled with people that do nothing but make wild guesses in blogs and on websites and on TV, and it's called educated analysis. And most of that educated analysis has been that the Democrats are making a mistake triggering the nuclear option on Gorsuch because there's no change in the balance of power. That Gorsuch is simply replacing Scalia, and so there's no real ideological change in the makeup of the court. So it's silly to waste a filibuster here. They should just go ahead and confirm Gorsuch. He's a good judge. All kinds of leftists around the country, judges and jurists, think no sense in stopping the guy. There's nothing there. But others on Trump's list, when it comes time, say, one of the libs retires or something else happens and one of them creates an opening, and then Trump wants to nominate another Gorsuch type or a conservative to fill a lib seat, that's when it gets nuclear on the Democrat side. And so the learned strategists have been saying, the Democrats are making a mistake here. They're wasting this. They should save this until the next opening. And it appears they've missed the whole point of why the Democrats are doing it. The Democrats are doing this for 2018. I know it sounds odd. The Democrats are looking at big trouble in 2018 if there isn't a change in public sentiment from the 2016 election. We've got a bunch of Democrat senators from red states that Trump won that are up for re-election, like 10 of them. That's a big, huge number. And if those Democrats lose those seats, the Republicans could end up with 60 seats in the Senate after the 2018 elections, just because of the new makeup, not because of any nuclear option or anything. They could literally end up with 60 seats. That hasn't happened I don't know how long. So the Democrats are trying to head that off, they think, by forcing McConnell to go nuclear, that they have created a winning campaign issue about what a bunch of Nazis the Republicans are. You know the mistake in this? I wonder if I should say this. Well, I can say it now because it's beyond the point of no return. They can't dial it back now. This is a Democrats' problem. There's a reason Democrats are losing elections. I know you're tired of hearing me say this, but folks, I'm not gonna start repeating the numbers. The thing the Democrats, and many mistakes they make, one of the mistakes they make is they think that average, ordinary, low-information voters follow the process. And most people couldn't care less about the process. When it comes to this, just confirm the guy. I don't care nuclear this, nuclear that. I don't care cloture vote, first cloture vote, rules of order. Screw that. Just confirm the guy. We elected you to get people like this on the court. Get them on the court. When it comes to health care, get rid of it. It's killing us. We can't afford the premiums. We can't afford the deductibles. We don't want to go to jail if we don't pay. We don't want to have to pay a fine. Just get rid of it. All the process involved, they don't care. They're not impressed by it. It's not at all something that they can be impressed by in terms of listening to the words and the lingo. And this process argument is what the Democrats are relying on. Okay, so McConnell triggers the nuclear option. The Democrats go campaign in 2018 on what a bunch of Nazis the Republicans are. How they triggered the nuclear option, how they defied democracy, how they defiled the Constitution. All they're going to do is maintain their base with that, but they're not going to grow it because people don't care about that. Gorsuch is going to end up in the court is what's going to matter in 2018, and the Democrats couldn't stop it. Is what's going to matter. But McConnell's doing something else in this nuclear option. That the Democrat, they're going to regret this, folks. I'll explain that when we get back. All right, I was right. It was 2003 that the Democrats changed all this. I was just protecting myself against a typo. So many people send me so much that's wrong that I have to protect myself by accounting for either option. But here's the deal. There were no politically based filibusters of judicial nominees ever in this country until 2003. Let me repeat that. Up until 2003, there were no politically based filibusters of judicial nominees. The filibuster for legislation, and again, it's not really a filibuster in the sense that people are not required to go to the floor and keep talking until they can't anymore. It's just they short-circuit that. They acknowledge somebody's got the fortitude to speak until 60 votes can be achieved to stop it. So essentially, the Senate changed rules that legislation outside of the budget required 60 votes to stop debate and then go to the vote on the actual legislation. But that was never applied to judicial nominees until 2003, when the Democrats invented the judicial filibuster to stop the nominees of George W. Bush. Prior to that, it was common that if a nominee were qualified, the nominee would get a vote on the floor. There would not be a filibuster to stop the nominee from even being voted on. The Democrats started that in order to go after Bush's lower court nominees. District Court was really aimed at Miguel Estrada. So the Democrats started all this, and all that McConnell is doing today is returning the Senate to the way it operated prior to 2003. Pure and simple. So President Trump and the First Lady, Melania, just boarded Air Force One at Joint Base Andrews en route to where we live to screw things up for about 3 or 4 days. I say that affectionately and jokingly. But I got an email from somebody. Rush, I just saw the president do the rudest thing. It's raining, and he got on board the plane before Melania. How rude is that? You know, that's an excellent question. And let me tell you why it happens. In official Washington protocol, no one goes through a doorway before the president. No one. The president always goes through a doorway first. Everybody is to make way for the president. This is pre-Trump. The president, if he wants, can defer and let somebody go, but he's not supposed to. The president is to always be first through a doorway, moving to a new room or entering a room. It's all about the appearance of power and protocol. I imagine many of you are now running to Google to try to prove me wrong on this. But don't doubt me. So the president was not being rude on entering Air Force One prior to the First Lady. Since that happens in public, he obviously decided to follow protocol and enter the airplane first. It is not about chivalry. It's not about potential danger on the other side of the doorway. It's all about the appearance of respect and power and things of this nature. And I'm sure that the vast majority of people don't know it. And I'm sure even many of you now are doubting me, but I warn you not to. He was not being rude, is the bottom line. He doesn't hate women, as another email says. See, this proves it. No respect for women. He's a pig. He's a misogynist. Now, normally I wouldn't even answer those emails, but in this case I felt the need to do so. Okay, so back to the filibuster for just a second, because it's happening. The Senate has just affirmed the nuclear option on the Gorsuch confirmation. To prove the point that prior to 2003, judicial filibusters didn't exist, look at Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas, after all of that crap that was his confirmation hearings, was confirmed to the court with fewer than 60 votes. So was Samuel Alito. And there have been others. But in the modern era, those are two prominent justices confirmed with fewer than 60 votes. The filibuster didn't exist. The Democrats invented the judicial filibuster in 2003 to stop the nominees to lower courts of George W. Bush. Harry Reid pulled it again in 2013 to include all presidential judicial nominations except those nominated for the Supreme Court. What McConnell has done today is not alter the Constitution. McConnell and the Republicans have not nuclearized the Constitution. They have not actually triggered a nuclear option. That's just words. All that's happened here is that Mitch McConnell has returned to the Senate its rules that existed prior to the Democrats changing them in 2003. And by the way, the Senate can make whatever rules it wants. And if a majority votes on the rules changed, then it's changed. The Constitution does not say anything about filibusters. The Constitution, because the filibuster was not actually invented until long after the country was founded and began operating. Now, what has happened with it? And the reason the Democrats did this in 2003, the first thing was Bush was illegitimate. Florida recount, he didn't really win. The Supreme Court rigged the game, blah, blah, blah. So Bush was not legitimate. So therefore, he shouldn't get any of these judges. But there was also another aspect to it, which was the Democrats, as I pointed out, yes, they never lose. They don't lose, and they don't respect the authority in place following elections that they lose. The only authority they acknowledge is their own. So when they lose elections, the first thing you'll start hearing about is the tyranny of the majority and how rules need to be changed to empower the minority. You never hear this when the Republicans are in the minority, only when the Democrats are. And what the Democrats actually seek is to give the minority more power than the majority, and in the process undermine duly constituted elections. And all that's changing here is McConnell is zapping all of that and returning the Senate to a deliberative body defined by popular elections, state by state by state, which, when you add them all up, the Democrats lost. That's really all that's happening. But the Democrats see it differently. Well, no, they know what's happening. They just want everybody to believe that Mitch McConnell is tearing the Senate up. They want Mitch McConnell to believe that he's ripping it up and flushing it down the toilet. They want people to believe Mitch McConnell doesn't respect elections, doesn't respect the minority, doesn't respect votes, and is therefore trying to rig the game against a valid minority which has legitimate concerns over blah, 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 blah. And as we have learned, what may be the real strategic reason for this is the Democrats think forcing the Republicans to go nuclear like this is a winning issue for them in 2018 in the midterms, in the Senate and House elections, where they will then be able to say of McConnell what I just said. He tore up the Constitution. These Republicans are a bunch of Nazis. These Republicans are a bunch of fascists. They tore up the Constitution. They couldn't get their nominee through the Senate any other way than to rig the game. And that's why you need to send us back to protect the fine, age-old traditions of the Senate. I think that's going to bomb out on them because people don't care about all this process. This is one of the many things about politics that people hate, but there's another aspect to this that goes beyond the removal of the filibuster here. What McConnell has also decided to do is lower the amount of time available for debate on future nominees. And they can thank Dingy Harry for that, too. The additional change, there's another change in this aside from just eliminating the filibuster. The additional change that they are considering would affect a bunch of future Trump nominees because this change will reduce debate time after a nominee clears an initial procedural hurdle. And the time change takes it from 30 hours to 8 hours. The reason why the vote's not going to be until tomorrow is even after triggering the nuclear option and breaking cloture, there is a minimum 30 hours of debate required after the nuclear option's triggered today. That's why the vote will not happen until tomorrow afternoon, because the rules at present permit 30 hours of debate. In this case, both parties, but the Democrats are going to have 30 hours to use to smear, to cajole, to try to convince Republicans like Murkowski and Collins to vote against Gorsuch. The additional change McConnell is implementing today reduces the 30 hours to 8 hours. And the real meaning of that is a significant reduction in the amount of time the Senate would need to confirm a nominee. If it were in place now, they could do the vote on Gorsuch at, say, 8 o'clock tonight or 9 o'clock tonight. Just 8 hours of debate, speeds up the process, and moves it along. And that is being implemented along with the removal of the filibuster today. But it's not unprecedented. In 2013, similar provision on limiting debate for most nominations. The 2013 measure passed the Senate by a vote of 78-16, but only governed the rules for that Congress. Democrats at the time held the majority in the Senate, so the rule changes. That's why McConnell can change it from 30 hours to 8 in order to speed up the process and limit the amount of time Democrats have to destroy somebody. Quick time out. We'll be back and continue after this. Okay, let's go to the phones and get started here with Barbara in Rochester, New York. Great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
I'm just fine, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. It's great to have you here. What's on your mind? What did you call to talk about?
Well, I think after Gorsuch is approved, I think Congress should change the number of Supreme Court justices from 9 to 11. And then they can get a few more conservatives on the court that will follow the rules of the law.
Well, she's got a point here, folks. Congress can determine the number of people on the court anytime they want to embark on changing the rule. Congress sets up the courts. Congress determines the districts, the circuits, if you will, and where they are. And the number, the Supreme Court has not always had 9 justices. It's had a varying number over the years. If they tried something like, do you expect the Democrats to go along with that? Barbara?
Well, the Democrats have no choice.
Well,
because they aren't the majority now.
Tell them that. Tell some Republican voters that. They don't see it manifesting that way. They still see the Democrats running the show. Nunes gone. Sessions recusing himself. Bannon in or out, depending on who you believe. Trump starting to listen to the liberal Democrats and Goldman Sachs and his administration. The media is on a full court press here to try to convince you that the liberal Democrats are taking over the Trump administration. The Republican gutless cowards are recusing themselves everywhere. Don't be stymied. You can react.
Oh, well, I'm just looking at this all these dynamics going on, and the bottom line is they have to focus. I don't care what party you belong to, what religion you are, what color you are. Focus on the American people. That's all we ask.
Well, I get your thinking. And I think your thinking echoes the sentiments of countless millions out there. And that is, all we've really done here is won an election. And now it's time to use it. So let's expand the Supreme Court to 11 while we confirm and appoint the nominees. And let's get a genuine conservative majority in there, regardless what happens to Stephen Breyer or Kennedy or Ruth Buzzy Ginsburg. It's like anything else, though. When you do that, the Democrats are going to end up back in power at some point. And those seats are going to become open. But I still get your thinking. Let's do, if the Supreme Court's going to have the power that it has, let's put as many of our people on it as we can. Barbara, let me ask you this before you go. Are you still there?
Yes, I am.
Imagine for a moment that several members of the House Judiciary Committee are actually listening right now and have heard your call. What do you think their reaction is?
I'm not sure. I do write the president every now and then, and I have made that suggestion. So I'm hoping somebody's listening to me.
Well, it's a great thought, and I appreciate it. We'll see. I'm not comfortable yet characterizing what I think the House members hearing your suggestion reaction would be. So we'll wait to see if it ever happens. In the meantime, Spokane, Washington. Chris, welcome to the EIB Network. Hello.
Hi, Rush. Megadittos.
Thank you, sir.
I want to comment on the protocol story you did. Now, I have to admit that I missed the first part of the story, so I'm not sure what happens inside a building from room to room, but getting on an airplane or getting into a car, the highest ranking person is the last one to get in and the first one to get out. I'm Air Force retired, so I had to deal with it.
Okay. Well, you are making a distinction. Here's what happened. That the President and the First Lady boarded Air Force One. It's raining cats and dogs, by the way. They had to go on with umbrellas. They didn't park the airplane in a hangar and let people board dry, so they had to board in the rain, umbrellas. The President boarded first, and after he was safely inside, the First Lady then ascended the steps. I then got emails from people pointing out that shows what a rude pig Trump is, that he doesn't even respect his wife enough to let her in the rain board the plane before he did. And it proves that Trump is a misogynist and is focused only on himself. And it was that I was reacting to.
Oh, okay.
And I said that there is a protocol that when the president enters a room or goes through a doorway, he is always first. You're saying in the Air Force it's not true.
No, whenever we carry generals or senators or anybody, the highest ranking person was the last one to get on.
Is that also true? Have you carried the president?
Oh, no, I didn't deal with the president, but if there's a general and the president gets off the plane first. If there's a general and a sergeant, the general gets off the plane
Yeah, that's
first.
true. The president always, well, of those in the front compartment, the media and the people in the back get off of the back of the plane. Nobody sees that. But
right
down the primary stairway, the primary doorway, the president is off the plane first. You're absolutely right about that. It was President Trump who told me this, folks. So that's my source for this is Trump, which I know many of you are going to say, well, see, Trump's stupid. He didn't know anything. Some of you leftists out there. But that's my source for this. And he said he was very surprised to learn it. He learned it in the White House. He was standing aside to let women enter rooms, and he was taken aside by a protocol expert. And Mr. President, you're supposed to enter first. The president always goes through a doorway first. And he said he still feels uncomfortable with it, but he does it because that's what's required. So that's my source. And I will be back. Don't go away. Well, the nuclear option is officially triggered. If you want to hear how it sounds, the senior member of the Senate, Orrin Hatch, announced it this way.
Let's have order. On this vote, the ayes are 48. The nays are 52. The decision of the chair does not stand as the judgment of the Senate.
Therefore, the rule has been changed. See, that's the kind of, what does that mean? What it means is they exercise the nuclear option, and the filibuster is gone. That's what it sounds like. Have a brief moment here at the top to relax, and we'll be back in a second. All right, here we are back at it. Rush Limbaugh having more fun than a human being should be allowed to have. Right here behind the golden EIB microphone at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced Leftist Studies. Telephone number is 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. The email address, lrushbo at eibnet.us. President Trump, I assume now airborne en route to Palm Beach, Florida, and the winter White House known as Mar-a-Lago. And I think the Chi-Com leader, Xi Jinping, is already here. He's staying down at a resort, in Lantana, or is it Manalapan? It's Manalapan. Manalapan is the area just south of Palm Beach. Palm Beach is an island, and it's during the season 40-some-odd thousand people reside here. After Easter, I mean the day after Easter, one half of that number will leave. 20,000 that day, they're gone. You know why? That's just the way it's always been done. If Easter's March the 14th, they leave March 15th. If Easter's April 16th, they leave April 17th. These are the blue bloods. These are the people who inherited their money and don't know why they do what they do, other than it's always been done that way. And they clear out of here, and the place becomes much less congested. And I know Mar-a-Lago itself closes for the summer, usually from mid-May all the way through October. But I don't know I'm sure Trump's got other places to go in the summertime when he wants to leave the White House. He's got, in the Mar-a-Lagos anywhere else, but he's got numerous golf clubs and places that he can go. So the times that he will be coming here on weekends and vacations is drawing to a close. I want to present one other possibility to explain why the Democrats forced the nuclear option today. And when I say forced it, they could have prevented this by voting for Gorsuch. All it would have required is Chuck Schumer finding 8 Democrats. And that wouldn't have been hard, because there are 10 Democrats up for re-election in 2018 in red states that Trump won big, who would really much have preferred to not do what they did today. And it would have strategically probably made more sense to hold off on the maneuver that they engaged in today until the next nominee, which likely will either be a replacement for Justice Kennedy, who may retire, or one of the acknowledged liberals on the court. But they didn't. They triggered it today. They forced the Republicans' hands today to get Gorsuch confirmed. And again, I just want to stress that the Republicans haven't done anything nuclear here. This is a classic example of the daily soap opera script being written by the media and acceded to and followed by Democrats. There's nothing earth-shattering that happened here. The real earth-shattering event was in 2003, when the Democrats changed centuries-old rules. There never were filibusters for judicial nominees in the Senate. Clarence Thomas was confirmed with fewer than 60 votes. So was Sam Alito. There was no such thing as a 60-vote requirement to confirm judges until the Democrats instituted it in 2003. So all that happened today was the Republicans returned the Senate to the rules that had always been the case in 2003. Nothing earth-shattering, nothing nuclear happened here. The Senate wasn't blown to shreds. Time-honored tradition wasn't destroyed. Nothing of the sort. When Harry Reid did this in 2013 and when the Democrats did it in 2003, there wasn't any of this accompanying news about how the Democrats were destroying the Senate and shaking it up and forever changing it and doing great damage to it. There wasn't any of that. The media was applauding back then because it was all aimed at stopping Republican nominees. So one of the theories as to why they forced this today is because they want to use this characterization of what the Republicans did as a part of a process campaign to retake the Senate in 2018. And it's really strange. Campaigning on process is dull, it's boring, it causes glassy eyes. It doesn't really, there's nothing exciting about Senate process or any bureaucracy process. It's like over in healthcare. People don't want to hear about the process. They don't want to hear what the problems are. They don't want to hear about it. Let's get it done. We elected Republicans since 2010 to get rid of this. Just get rid of it. We don't want to hear why you can't do it. We don't want to hear all these fancy-dancy excuses. Just get rid of it. And yet, there it is. Well, I wish to offer a variation on the process theory that might be behind why the Democrats did this today rather than save it. The first theory, again, is that in 2018, when they run for their various Senate elections, they will use this and explain that the Republicans are a mean bunch of Nazis and defied traditional Senate rules and get into the minutia of what happened here to try to demonstrate how Republicans can't be trusted. But there's another variation on this that could be what they intend to do. And I will admit that the Democrats rarely have made the mistake of basing campaigns on process, meaning using the process as a weapon in a campaign, because it is so boring and it's so insider that it's not naturally exciting. It doesn't inspire anybody. There's nothing about it that attracts people. It turns people off. So there is an alternative theory that what they did, this is their campaign in 2018, what they did was legitimately filibuster Gorsuch, and they will say, we stopped him. Look at what we did to their base. We stopped Gorsuch. You should love us. You told us to stop Gorsuch, and we did. Under the current rules of the Senate, we stopped Gorsuch. We made sure that Gorsuch didn't get 60 votes. You should be thanking us. You should be celebrating us. We did exactly what we told you we were going to do. We stopped Gorsuch, except for the corrupt GOP. And so this ultra-right Supreme Court and all decisions forthcoming from Gorsuch that the left abhors, they are now going to try to delegitimize. I think in the simplest way I can explain it, go ahead and stand aside and let the Republicans get rid of the filibuster and confirm Gorsuch, and then the Democrats campaign in 2018 on the basis he's illegitimate. The Republicans had to break the rules. It's a continuation of the Republicans are a bunch of fascists and Nazis. We stopped Gorsuch, they will say. I can see the fundraising now from the DNC, from the Democrat Senatorial Campaign Committee. I see Chuck Schumer out there. We did everything we told our base, which is insane, that we were going to do. We stopped Gorsuch. Well, because I'm not telling you that it's going to work. I'm just telling you what their thinking is. How does it attract new people? Who knows? It depends on what the lay of the land is there. If they have succeeded in convincing people that Trump's illegitimate, if they've succeeded still in 2018 that Trump's not worthy of being there and should be sent packing, but we can't do that yet, but we can get rid of everything Trump did. We can so they delegitimize Gorsuch in every decision that he participates in. They will continue to resist, is the point. They will not submit. They will not respect the authority that is Gorsuch as a justice on the court. The Democrats' 2018 campaign for the Senate in all these different states will be love us, support us, donate to us because we stopped Gorsuch. We couldn't stop a corrupt GOP, but because the GOP is corrupt, They put Gorsuch on the court in violation of Senate rules. And so Gorsuch shouldn't even be there. This really is about all the Democrats have. As they continue to lose elections, the best strategy they've got is to delegitimize the people that win them and claim that victory has been stolen from them, like Russia and Trump stealing from Hillary, and now Mitch McConnell stealing and putting Gorsuch on the court because of a corrupt GOP. And they continue to set themselves up as victims of illegitimate political players. It'll keep the money rolling in. And when the Democrats think about elections, there's one thing they think about, Mr. Snerdley: turnout, turnout, turnout. They don't think about much else. If they can get the turnout, then they'll deal with how those people vote later. But the first thing they've got to do is get the turnout. So this is all oriented along the line of just angering everybody, just trying to poison everybody's mind about the system when Republicans are in charge. And forced turnout based on the fact that this has got to change. Our country is being lost. Our country is being stolen right from us, right in front of our faces. And this must stop. And Gorsuch will be an example of an illegitimately confirmed justice. I'm not saying it is going to work. I'm saying this is what they're thinking, because it's a legitimate question. Why waste this big push on the filibuster now when it doesn't change the balance of the court? So I'm coming up with explanations for people who are asking that question. Half my brain tied behind my back just to make it fair. And back to the phones, Madison, Indiana. Joyce, great to have you on the program. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, Rush. How are you?
Fine. Thank you very much. I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. I wanted to just say, first of all, I want to thank you for always standing your ground and always giving us a voice. We who are conservatives out here, you're our voice.
Well,
and
thank you.
I want to thank you for that.
Sincerely appreciate your saying that, Joyce. Thank you very much.
I wanted to, this morning when I seen that Chairman Nunes stepped aside, I could not believe it. I could not believe that he folded when it seemed like things were going well, especially with the Susan Rice.
I know. I can't tell you the number of emails I got in the first 5 minutes. The subject line was WTF. I'm not kidding.
And who is this House Ethics Committee investigating him? Who are they?
Well, it's a bipartisan committee of Republicans and Democrats, and it's Republicans seldom use it. The Democrats do. It is what you think it is. It's there to be used by, if there are legitimate ethics complaints. These complaints apparently came from outside the House. They're from left-wing activist groups working through members of the House to lodge these complaints that Nunes violated ethics by going up to the White House and reporting to Trump rather than reporting to Pencilneck.
So, and then this morning Ryan said he still was standing behind him and all that. But it seems like every time we're going 2 steps forward, then something like this happens.
I know.
We go about like 10 steps backward, we slide back down the hill again, and we have to start all over again.
Well, let me go grab the next caller, because the next caller has a theory about this that you may be interested in. I understand how you feel. This is the exact kind of thing that demoralizes people on our side. They see the IRS commissioner, corrupt as anybody, still there. They see a bunch of Obama holdovers still in the deep state. Nobody does anything about them. They never resign. They get Susan Rice in there, who's proudly parroting around what she did or didn't do, and it looks like she's getting away with it. More on that as the program unfolds. But then the slightest thing, Sessions recuses himself on the Russia investigation. People say, why? You weren't even accused of anything. And then Nunes says, I'm going to step aside because I don't want to be a distraction. The thing about this, Nunes is going to step aside. Adam Schiff is going to continue to talk about Nunes no matter where Nunes is. He's going to forever say the investigation is tainted, no matter they got rid of Nunes, because Nunes tainted it. The Republicans haven't made any changes. It's the way it always works. We ought to be able to see this stuff coming and be ready for... Well, look, I've been saying for 25 years. All I can do is join you in your frustration and tell you I relate to it and understand it. But here is Stuart in Clover, South Carolina, with a different take on it. What say you, Stuart? Stuart, are you there?
Yep. Yes, I'm here. Thanks for taking my call.
You bet. What's your theory on this?
Well, my first reaction was what everybody else is thinking, too. Like, oh, my gosh, he recused himself. But like you just said, if he stayed there and then when they come to the conclusion, the inevitable conclusion that there's nothing there to this Russia probe, they're going to scream and cry and say it was tainted and all that. But what people are doing and making the mistake of doing is combining the Russia probe with the surveillance scandal. Every other Republican on that committee should do the same thing that Nunes just did and recuse himself. Say, fine, Democrats, if y'all want to keep pushing this, we know that they've been surveilled for a year now. Whether or not the White House and Susan Rice wants to admit that they were targeting the Trump team or whatever, we know that they were listening to them. And so after all that, they still don't have any proof of any collusion. It's a futile. It's the Russia probe to nowhere. They should all do the same thing. Say, I'm going to recuse myself. This is going nowhere. We're going to start an investigation into the real scandal and start by sending a subpoena to Susan Rice.
Right. Okay. I hear you. So here, Stewart's theory is this Russian thing. There's nothing there. There is no collusion. There isn't any evidence. Nobody's ever found any evidence. There clearly was no way the Russians tampered with the votes. So this is going nowhere, and it's taken a long time to get there. The real scandal is the Obama administration spying on the Trump people for a year. That's what needs to be focused on. That's the investigation everybody needs to go after. So Stewart's saying, they get rid of Nunes, fine. There's nothing there anyway. This is distraction. We need to focus on the Obama administration spying of the Trump campaign, which we know happened. And I very much admire and appreciate that thinking, because the news continues to mount on this side that what was heretofore thought to be just not possible. Are you kidding? Said the media. Our beloved, godlike Obama spying on anybody? Why? It would never happen. And how dare you attempt to impugn our godlike president by saying that he would stoop to such, except that we know he has. He spied on Angela Merkel. Obama was spying on members of, when I say Obama, the administration was spying on members of Congress, and members of Congress know it. There was surveillance of Israelis during an election campaign there. This is something that we know the Obama administration routinely did. And to now all of a sudden expect that it's not possible with these allegations or something not being explained. It's entirely, this is how Obama won elections, was by forcing private, classified, off-limits data, sealed court documents to be released about his opponents and their divorce records and so forth. So, and that investigation is just ramping up, and there is all kinds of effort to stonewall it. We will be back in a second. See, Fox has got this playing out just as I said. Fox headline, Senate Democrats block Neil Gorsuch from advancing, so the Democrats can say, see, we stopped Gorsuch. We did the difference. Democrat voters are intolerant of their politicians not doing what they say. We let our guys get away with it. Democrat voters don't. So Fox is carrying the water here. They don't know they're doing it, don't misunderstand, but they're playing right in the Democrats' hands. The Democrats can say, we stopped him. We stopped the guy. We got rid of the guy. And so now the Democrats are prepared to say that the corrupt Republicans have an illegitimate judge on a court. More on that in just a second, because this is getting kind of funny now. The Daily Beast has a story. I'll just read the headline here. Steve Bannon calls Jared Kushner a cuck and a globalist behind his back. Donald Trump's two closest aides are fighting nonstop and often face-to-face, officials say, and it's even uglier in private. The story here written by Asawin Subsingh of the Daily Beast. Donald Trump's chief strategist, Stephen Bannon, has called the president's senior advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner, a cuck and a globalist during a time of high tension between the two top aides. If you run to the dictionary looking up the word cuck, you may have to go to some newfangled New Age dictionary to find a definition of it, because it isn't there. They don't know what this word means in the Ivy League. The way it is being used in Washington is to describe a poltroon conservative, a phony conservative, a rhino Republican. Now, I don't know. So far, Bannon has denied every news story about him. He denied that he thought of quitting. He denied that it was the Mercers that convinced him to stay. He's saying that all this news about him being taken off the National Security Council, that was totally misrepresented, nothing to see there. So I don't know what's going to happen with this. But if this is true, how can Trump let this slide? I mean, Kushner, not only is his son-in-law, Kushner is a chief. Kushner is, some even describe him as a shadow Secretary of State. He's over in the Middle East right now. The fighting between Kushner, according to Daily Beast, and Bannon has been nonstop in recent weeks. According to sources who spoke on condition of anonymity, it's been an open secret that Bannon and Kushner often clash face-to-face. One official said that Bannon has lately complained about Kushner trying to shiv him and push him out the door, and likened him to a fifth column in the White House. One administration official, unnamed, told the Daily Beast, quote, Bannon recently vented to us about Jared being a globalist and a cuck. He actually said cuck, as in cuck-servative. And it means phony, pretend, not reliable, not really a conservative. It's an inside the beltway term. It's kind of a portmanteau of conservative and cuckold and conservative, and it's become a favorite slur on the right. It's like a sexually, racially charged version of rhino, which is Republican in name only. So, if you went to the dictionary and you entered cuck and it said cuckold, then you were halfway there. But, and it's C-U. C-K. Don't spell it a different way. So the fireworks continue to explode here. Whatever is being done to try to calm this down and tamp this down is not working. Yeah. I haven't heard that. Snurdly just says, I've heard this is a management style Trump likes. He likes people going at each other's throats and so forth. I haven't. Don't know that. Could well be true. Not sure. But I don't. One of them involved is your son-in-law, who is really ranking both in the family and in the political structure here. But then I read something last night, which you don't know what to believe anymore. The thing I read last night, and I don't remember where, was that Bannon is one of the few people that Trump considers an equal in terms of finance, economics, wealth, stature, and standing in the world, so forth. Whatever. There's a lot of intrigue, and whatever this is, it's a distraction from some of the other stuff going on. The media can't avoid this. They just eat this stuff up, folks. They're swallowing this stuff like a 90-year-old virgin on Viagra. They cannot let go of it. So we'll see what plays out next. Now, I want to go back to our caller who suggested that this Russian investigation is going to go nowhere because there's nothing there. And what really ought to be focused on is the Obama administration spying that's what really needs to be investigated, and anything that interrupts the Russian investigation, according to our caller's name of Stuart, is a good thing. Fox News is reporting that the intelligence community is stonewalling the investigation into the Obama administration leaking about Trump. The story's from the Daily Wire, but they're reporting what happened at Fox. And according to Fox, legislators and investigators working with the House and Senate Intelligence Committees investigating allegations that the regime spied on Trump and his associates claim that intelligence agencies, whether it's CIA, NSA, DIA, are stonewalling efforts to discover who is leaking names and protected classified information to the media. Fox News said multiple lawmakers and investigators told Fox News the CIA, the FBI, the NSA are not cooperating with the investigation. Wouldn't surprise me. There's a bunch of Obama holdovers there. This is the now famous deep state that everybody talks about. One House Intelligence Committee source said our requests are simply not being answered. CIA, FBI, NSA, they're not helping at all. And there's a massive web of deceit for us to try and wade through. A Senate Intelligence Committee source said any information that'll help find the wide extent on the unmasking and surveillance is purposely not being provided. So Obama regime officials are stonewalling. They're not participating. They're continuing to leak. And they're continuing to do the unmasking and reporting, but they're not cooperating. New York Times, Maggie Haberman of the Democrat National Committee and Matthew Rosenberg, Trump citing no evidence suggests Susan Rice committed a crime. Another way it's done. Trump citing no evidence. It's like CNN runs graphics all like that all the time. Trump, despite no evidence, claims such and such had Cheerios for breakfast or whatever it is. They always throw in despite having no evidence. Well, excuse me, but isn't it the New York Times that has had no evidence for every allegation they've been making about Trump and Russia? Excuse me, but isn't that the case? Is in every single story that they have run on this, featuring leaks from deep in the intelligence community, has not every story said, but so far there is no clear evidence suggesting a link. All we have is the leaking, and all we have is the supposition and the speculation, no evidence. So couldn't you say, and be accurate in doing so, that every New York Times article cites no evidence when they report what they report? So Trump has thrown another grenade. And I just want to remind you, when Trump throws these grenades, as frustrated as people get, even Trump supporters, as time passes, Trump ends up being much more right than he is wrong, such as when he lobbed that mortar into the Democrats about Obama tapping his wires at Trump Tower. Remember, they had a fit over that, and as time passed, now everybody's acknowledging that the Obama administration was indeed spying, that there was incidental capture of Americans, and those Americans were unmasked. Everybody's admitting this now. The only question is who did it. Susan Rice is denying it for political purposes. She's admitting it happened, but no, not for political purpose, which is a big laugh. So Trump was right. Now he's out there. Susan Rice may have committed a crime. This is the kind of pushback Democrats are not accustomed to, nor is the media. Now, Catherine Herridge at Fox News has what I consider to be even more blockbuster news about this. The unmasking of Republicans, Trump people incidentally captured when foreign objects were being surveilled. Apparently, the information that has been collected on these Republicans is massive. and detailed about things in their everyday lives. Peter King, a Republican congressman from New York, he's on the House Intelligence Committee, said that he's seen some of this. He said this information is about their everyday lives. It's sort of like in a divorce case where lawyers are hired and investigators are hired just to find out what the other person's doing from morning until night. Then you try to piece it together later on. Another pull quote from the story, while not commenting on the individual case, a former senior intelligence official explained the request must be approved by the NSA. Rice would have understood that there is an extensive government paper trail. I mean, we're not just talking about the transcripts of phone calls. Once these people are unmasked, a full-fledged investigation of them begins. And what Susan Rice has ended up seeing is detailed. Put it differently, she is seeing countless details about these people's everyday lives, not just what they happen to be saying to a phone call, on a phone call with a surveilled subject like the Russian ambassador. Information about their everyday lives, which leads to the possibility of blackmail. I mean, who knows what they're collecting and what they have? It says here that Susan Rice would have understood that there is an extensive government paper trail on these people incidentally captured that can be audited within the NSA that shows who requested the unmasking and why and whether it was granted, which raises more questions about Rice, more questions about her motivation, and whether it was authorized higher up, which we are not doubting that it was. Now, if approved, if the request to unmask is approved, the former senior intelligence official said, only the requester, in this case Susan Rice, would receive the information. Based on Fox News reporting, the information was shared beyond Rice, but it's not clear if those who received it had a need to know. So the question is, who told her to do it? Who asked her to request the unmasking? And then who, therefore, did she report to after getting the data that she got on? This is potentially bigger than Watergate stuff, the way this is all falling out here. Okay, so when the last break began, look, the Chi-Com guy's plane is apparently, yep, there he is. The Chi-Com guy has just arrived. So he's gotten here. He's arrived here before Trump. He's flying a Boeing 747. Let's see who gets off first, if the Chi-Com guy or his wife, Xi Jinping. Now, they just went to commercial break. They're rolling out the red carpet, appropriate for a Chi-Com leader. Anyway, the broadcast engineer, as the break began, said, you, of course, have seen the GQ article blaming you for the creation of the term cuck. I said, what? I've only seen it once, and I forgot the definition. Today I'm asking people if they know what it means. Well, the GQ article implies that you created it. So the broadcast engineer sent it to me. Miguel Snerdley is the broadcast engineer. People ask what's his name. And lo and behold, here's a picture of me with my mouth open, shouting at a very tiny Jeb Bush, and the word coming out of my mouth is cuck. What do you mean I can't argue with, to this day, I'm not dead certain what it is. You know, I don't traffic in sub-languages like this. I'm an erudite, sophisticated, educated individual. And I don't run around calling people cucks. And the headline of this piece is Why Angry White Men Love Calling People Cucks. So and here's it's a photo of me with a communist red background and yellow letters spelling out cuck, and Jeb Bush is who I'm shouting at. And this is from last August 1st of 2016, and nobody told me about this. And no, I don't do Google alerts on myself, folks. I don't need to know that I'm in the news. I already know that. I don't need to see every evidence of it. In fact, My friends no longer even say. I used to, every time I was in the news, people would send me the link, and I don't anymore because they know I don't care. That's why I say I'm too famous. I can't even keep up with it all. It's written by somebody named Dana Schwartz, The Problematic History of the Alt-Right's Favorite New Insult. Well, I'm not alt-right. Alt-right is this... That's another thing. The alt-right, I don't even know that it exists. I mean, it's got maybe 5 or 6 admitted members. The drive-bys want you to think it is the conservative movement, a bunch of white supremacists, and they say that Bannon leads it. If you've been on Twitter in the last few months, chances are you've come across cuck, a word that you previously only seen while your browser was in incognito mode. And apparently what it means... Well, it's I'm looking at I don't have time to get into the full-fledged definition of this. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to string you along here, folks. Our Secretary of State, Rex Tillerson, stationed at the bottom of the stairs that have pulled up to the doorway of the Chi-Com leaders, Boeing 747, Xi Jinping, and they're now beginning to get off the airplane. There he is, Xi Jinping, and his wife is going first. That's what we wanted to see. Back in a second, folks. All right, the Chi-Com leaders limo just now pulling away from the Chi-Com leaders 747 at Palm Beach International Airport and now headed to the resort community of Manalapan, where he will stay during meetings with President Trump, who's not yet arrived at Palm Beach International. His arrival is imminent. Greetings. Welcome back. It's great to have you with us here, folks. Phone number, as always, if you want to be on the program, 1-800-282-2882, and the email address, lrushmo@eibnet.us. Just look. Forget the definition of cuck. The one thing about it is that it's an insult to phony conservatives. That's the thing that you have to understand about it. The Urban Dictionary definition of the word is it's ridiculous. It's obscene. It's insulting, and it's not based in any kind of reality. One of the definitions is someone who wins an argument against a conservative. The other definition is it's a word used by white supremacists to solicit sex. I mean, it's silly. It's absurd. But the point is, Jared Kushner's not a Republican. He's never been a conservative. Jared Kushner comes from a family of huge Democrats, huge Democrat donors and so forth. This is Ivanka's husband and Trump's son-in-law, who he values tremendously. But if cuck is some insult to a less than sincere or genuine conservative, it doesn't even apply to Kushner. So, and given this GQ story, associating me with this word is total made-up BS. You have to consider that associating Bannon with these so-called behind-the-back insults of Kushner is made up as well. I mean, it doesn't make any. If it's true, for example, Trump can't let that slide by, no matter even if he does like his advisors going at each other, because it's his father, his son-in-law there. Anyway, time will tell on all of this stuff. Problem with it is not so much the details; it's the picture being painted of an administration that has no idea what it's doing, and that is in constant fights with each other. And that is the real purpose of these stories. But folks, I'm going to tell you something. I was chatting with a friend last night. I think there is a very simple, and I alluded to it yesterday, I think there's a very simple explanation for a lot of this coverage, and it is that Trump is kicking butt. We just had the jobs report came out. It's being buried today by this other news. But there are more substantive, real wage-paying jobs in manufacturing and mining and other things. It's the greatest jobs report for this category in years. And it's way above everybody's expectations. The economy's chugging along. One poll has Trump's approval number back up to 46 from the 30s. And I went through the list of things earlier this week. All of the Obama administration regulations and executive orders that he implemented that are being unraveled and unwound. I think the mistake people make, I was talking to another friend of mine who's been really down, the guy I told you is constantly complaining because tax cuts aren't happening. And he's thinking Trump sold. I said, you realize you're making a critical mistake here in the way you're looking at this. You are associating Trump with the Republican Party, and that's the mistake you're making. The Republican Party may be not doing things. They may not be getting health care done. They may be dragging their feet on tax cuts, but don't lay that off on Trump. You have to separate Trump from the Republican Party. Well, but Rush, you can't. He ran as a Republican, and he's working with it. I understand that. But the things that Trump can do on his own that he is doing are numerous, and they are substantive. And he is seriously unwinding and unraveling much of what Obama implemented. And he's done a tremendous amount. I think Trump is having a phenomenal record or level of achievement here. You're just not seeing it reported on. That one little AP story that listed some of these things had to be one of the hardest things for them to write. And I know it may be difficult to separate Trump from the Republicans, but I'm telling you, the Republicans can have a bad day when Trump's having a good one. The Republicans can have a bad week when Trump is having a good one. And my friend said, you know what? You're right. I was making that mistake. When the Republicans don't do tax cuts, I'm saying Trump's a failure. And I said, it's too early to say that. The things Trump can do. Look at the end run. He's had two extra legal rulings on his travel ban, preventing them. So he's found ways around this that are even more effective in vetting bad actors than the travel bans would have been. So he's finding a way around all of the obstacles the Democrats are putting up, of things he can control. Now, Trump cannot mandate tax law. But of the things Obama implemented via executive order, Trump can strip them away and do away with them, and he's doing it like at the EPA and any number of other places. His budget, considered to be dead on arrival on Washington, is nevertheless a blueprint of what he's thinking of doing. And I think there's also this factor that we haven't seen in our lifetimes a president under this kind of assault. All day, every day, 24/7. We haven't seen it. And it does not appear to be souring Trump or altering his daily approach to his job at all. He's still fighting back at them, tweeting back at them. He is still moving forward with the things in his agenda that he can do. And I think the longer this goes on and the more meaningful progress Trump has, which is being covered up and masked by all these other distractions in the news, as they keep happening, these are real things that are continuing to happen. These are real things, real items, real events that are ending up unraveling and weakening things the Democrats believe in. And you couple that with them losing elections, and what we're left with is the different narrative every day that Trump's losing it, that Trump's administration's falling apart, that the Democrats are carrying it. That's all BS. Now, I know that it's believed by people that see it. I'm not got my head in the sand on this. Don't misunderstand. I'm not saying that stuff's not a problem. But I think, on balance, Trump is having a phenomenally successful first 100 days here. I'm just telling you, if Trump were a Democrat and what he was doing was a Democrat agenda, it's all you'd be seeing. They would have killed if Obama had had this much success early on in unraveling conservatism and implementing his liberalism and transforming the country. Remember, even now you'll find Democrats who think Obama didn't get enough done, didn't take enough advantage of the early opportunities he had when he had both the House and Senate in vast, vast majorities. Now, I know what I've said is arguable, and if you want to argue with me about it, feel free. But I think it's worth taking a look at some of the positive aspects and things that are happening here, because they are happening. Yeah, I know. It's if a tree falls in the forest and nobody's there, does it make any noise? If all these great things are happening and it's not being reported, does anybody know? Maybe not, but in the real world, they're still happening. And that means something. Remember, I'm the mayor of Realville, so I know what goes on there, and I know how important it is. Trump spurs GOP to tweak health bill before leaving town. The White House prodded House Republican leaders to make last-minute tweaks to their Obamacare replacement bill today, aimed at protecting high-cost patients before lawmakers leave town for their 2-week spring break. Congress is going to work 8 days this month. Grand total of 8 days. The House Rules Committee will meet later in the day to consider an amendment offered by 2 House members to create a new risk-sharing fund for the seriously sick. And Ryan mentioned this at a news conference. But the point of this story is that Trump is goosing them. The other part of the story is that Ryan is taking a back seat to Pence in this latest Obamacare effort. And I don't think that's anything really new. I think Mike Pence is one of the prime movers and shakers on this. I think he's been actively involved. And if that's the case, you can be fairly confident. I mean, Mike Pence, you're not going to find in this bunch a more qualified and committed conservative to these kinds of issues. There's a fact-checked outfit out there called PolitiFact, and it's like all the other fact-check outfits. The Washington Post has one, the AP has one, and these fact-check outfits exist only to discredit and impugn Trump. Well, the PolitiFact has had to retract a story they categorized as mostly true 3 years ago. And this story is big. 3 years ago, Barack Obama and his regime was an abject disaster. But they were claiming success after success after success, particularly in the Middle East. And one of the things that the Obama administration was celebrating was that they had completely removed chemical weapons from Syria. That Obama drew that red line, and the Syrians and everybody else realized the bad actor they were dealing with, and they cowered in fear, and they did remove 100% of their chemical weapons. There's a problem now, though. Those chemical weapons were just used in an attack in Syria on Syrian citizens. So how could the Obama administration have gotten rid of all of it? The Obama, you know what the claim was? That they gave all of that chemical weapon stock to the Russians. Oh, yeah. Yeah, folks. The Obama administration, now the dire enemy of the Russians, victimized by the Russians, gave the chemical weapon stocks in Syria to the Russians. Which means the Russians probably gave it right back to the Syrians. But the PolitiFact story retracts a 2014 article that said it was mostly true that the Obama administration helped broker a deal that successfully removed 100% of chemical weapons from Syria. So a story that was a lie, backed up by PolitiFact for 3 years, has been retracted. And the upshot is the Obama administration did not succeed in successfully removing all of Syria's chemical weapons, as we now know because those weapons were used recently. So it's just another example of the media touting and promoting greatness on the part of Obama, especially in comparison to Bush. I mean, the way they did this story was Bush lied about weapons of mass destruction. We went to war and people died, but Obama, he's smarter than Bush. He's smart. He's so smart. He's so erudite. He's so our good guy. And he told the Syrians what for, and he told the Russians what for. And the Syrians were so scared of our guy that they got rid of their chemical weapons of mass destruction, whereas Saddam Hussein just laughed in Bush's face. That's the way they portrayed all this. And for 3 years, the media and fact checkers allowed that phony baloney, plastic banana, good time rock and roller portrayal of Obama's prowess in foreign policy. Now we know it was all BS, and the PolitiFact, because this attack has had to retract their fact check that they said mostly true. Now there's another aspect of this. There are red flags. A lot of people have red flags about the way President Trump is reacting to this. There are people who think that this attack in Syria, using chemical weapons on Syrian citizens, is a setup designed to draw President Trump into military action in Syria, just as Bush was drawn into action in Iraq. Now people are beginning to think that the intelligence agencies from all over Western democracies, it was ours, the CIA, MI6 in the UK, practically every allied intel agency agreed with the CIA and everybody else that Saddam had weapons of mass destruction. And you'll remember the presentation Colin Powell gave, complete with satellite photos and all of that at the UN. And Bush ran around the country for a year and a half, selling the country on the idea that after 9/11 we had to root out any enemy like this that had these kind of weapons and were threatening to use them on Americans, and that was the justification for the war in Iraq. So we get there, and supposedly there weren't any found. Now, I don't totally believe that. I think Saddam did have WMDs, found a way to hide them, get rid of them. Maybe they went to Syria. But the upshot is that there are people now thinking that these intelligence people, there were many Clinton holdovers, just like there are now Obama holdovers, and that many people ran a scam on Bush. They knew that there were not mass quantities of weapons of mass destruction, and they let Bush go in there on purpose to embarrass himself. And there are people who think, look, that happened once, it can happen again. Mr. President, they're saying to Trump, please be very careful before you make a move on Syria, because you could be in the process of being entrapped again, just like Bush was. And I'll give you details on what people are saying about this when we come back. Don't go away. Okay, so the Democrats and Obama were bragging about getting rid of all the nuclear weapons out of Syria. And an attack happened yesterday. The UK Daily Mail, Peter Hitchens. Mr. Trump, it's weapons of mass destruction all over again. Why don't you see it? And he reminds President Trump of a tweet. On June 15th of 2013, Donald Trump tweeted, we should stay the hell out of Syria. The rebels are just as bad as the current regime. What will we get for our lives and billions of dollars? Zero. People thinking the president needs to remember these tweets, that he was right back then. We've got no business getting involved in Syria. It might be a rehash of Iraq. Mr. President, remember your original tweets. There's even another tweet. That first tweet was June 15th. There was another tweet from Trump on September 5th in 2013. And it reads this way, again, to our very foolish leader, do not attack Syria. If you do, many very bad things will happen, and from that fight, the U.S. gets nothing. There are people who remember Trump treated these things and said similar things during the campaign. But now that he's president, now that we've seen the pictures of the gas attacks on these women, children, average citizens, Trump says it's on me now. We can't tolerate this. We can't put up with this. The frenzy over the... And by the way, all we have is the pictures. Some people think we don't even know they actually did it. This is the alleged use of poison gas in Syria is the 2017 version of Anthony Blair's weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. This is the UK Daily Mail. Tony Blair, the British media think that Blair got sucked into a trick, that there weren't weapons of mass destruction, and he was lied to, and he bought the lie. And so people are afraid, people who support Trump are afraid that he may be falling prey to the same kind of trick. And they're reminding him of his previous tweets. And try this headline. Totally different subject. Millennial men prefer to be family breadwinners and have stay-at-home wives. Millennial men. Now, this requires some explanation. And there is nobody better equipped than I, to explain this to you. Because on this, I'm an expert. Back in just a second. All right, let me break this down for you, making it complex understandable. The Democrats want you to believe that Trump's in bed with Putin, right? The Democrats want you to believe that Putin helped Trump win the election by somehow screwing Hillary and the whole Democrat effort, colluded, and so they don't have any evidence for it, but they're convinced it happened, right? So Trump and Putin are buddy-buddy. Trump doesn't ever criticize Putin. What in the world, then, would Trump be talking about going into Syria for? Because that's a Russian ally. And if Trump is even talking about attacking Syria, then he can't possibly be Putin's best friend. And that's according to the drive-bys and the rest of the Democrats. I mean, Trump attacking Syria undercuts the entire narrative that Trump and Putin are buddies. Here's Christina in Fresno. Christina, I'm glad you waited. Great to have you with us on the EIB network today. How are you?
I'm doing great. You know, Representative Nunes is my congressman, and I do not approve of him stepping aside. You know, Congress needs to be reminded that their oath is to the Constitution, not to the House rules or the Senate rules. The Democrats, they manage to advance the cause of tyranny when they're in power, but Republicans can't advance the cause of liberty to save their life.
Yeah, I understand the frustration. To a certain degree, I share it with you. They do take an oath to defend and protect the Constitution, but the House rules are the House rules. I mean, when there's an ethics complaint lodged, it has to be acknowledged. I think the recusal here, the temporary stepping down, the stated reason for it is so that he doesn't provide or create or continue to be a distraction. But I don't think that washes because, like Adam Schiff, pencil neck, I don't care where Nunes could quit the House, and they're still going to be talking about what he did in their minds and how it invalidates the whole investigation because it's been corrupted. So it doesn't matter where Nunes is. They're still going to... This is the one thing the Republicans, to me, have never figured out. It doesn't matter what they say or do. The Democrats are still going to attack them the way they attack them because of who and what liberalism is. But the alternative theory, I don't know if you heard the first hour of the program, but there's a reporter for the Daily Beast who thinks that the reason Nunes is gone is because Ryan forced him out, because Nunes did not tell Ryan the truth about who tipped him off to the intelligence he went to the White House to look at. The story is that Nunes told Paul Ryan that a whistleblower alerted him to the existence, and the truth is that somebody in the White House told him about it. And so the reporter's Matt Lewis, and he says that it was Ryan that actually forced Nunes out because Nunes wasn't honest with him. So who knows?
No, Nunes and Paul Ryan, they are BFF. So whatever's being, advanced in the press, it's smoke and mirrors. It's all good behind the scenes. I know that.
They're BFFs, best friends forever?
They are, absolutely.
Okay. Well, look, a lot of people share your frustration. Like I say, the number one subject line in my emails this morning when the Nunes news broke. Email after email, subject line, WTF, question mark. People on our side don't believe it, don't understand it. We won many elections on Election Day. What is this? You got Sessions recusing himself. Anyway, I appreciate the call, Christina. Thank you. Dave, Fort Wayne, Indiana, you're next. Welcome. Great to have you here.
Hi, Rush. Thank you for taking my call. 7,312 dials and one new battery, but I got through.
I'm glad you did. Thank you very much.
Yes. I wanted to mention actually a couple things, but you hit the nail on the head, I think, yesterday when you mentioned the Democrats, the authoritarian, and a legitimate hate group, but your analogy also with radical Islam, I just thought that was so accurate of an interpretation of how they think, where they go, and I think they'll go to the point of beheading, the way they play their games. And it's amazed me since the Bush administration, the Republicans seem like they've never learned this is bare knuckle, and they always leave their gloves on. And it's just amazing.
Well,
they do that.
That's the thing. The point that I was making yesterday, if you didn't hear it, and you heard Dave here say that my comparison to Islam and the Democrats is right on, you probably need me to explain that to you. And it was Sharia Islam, that I was comparing the Democrats to. It's all rooted in the fact that the Democrat Party, the left, forget Democrat Party, the left, the leftist, communist, socialist, whatever, the Democrats are just a faction of it. And that they do no longer respect the authority of the Constitution. The only authority that they respect is their power. And therefore, there is no such thing as bipartisanship with them. And this is the mistake that I hear Republicans continuing to make, even now, on campaign trails. You will hear, like Tom Tillis, the senator of North Carolina, Republican, to this day campaigns on the notion that we need to be able to reach across the aisle and to reach compromise and show that we can govern together. And that's not who they are. They don't want compromise. They don't respect us. We are not legitimate. We are enemies. We are as big an enemy as any other enemy they have. Their objective is total rule over the United States, not sharing power one election to the next. They do not respect the authority of elections. You ever wonder why I've had people say, Rush, why don't they realize they've lost? I mean, they didn't win. The Republicans did. And that's a great question to use as an illustration. They don't accept that they lost. They're never going to behave as though they won because they don't respect the authority of the Constitution. The Constitution is what every elected official swears an oath to. And the reason for that is the Constitution is the glue. Have you ever, folks, think of it this way. We have this massively unique, greatest country ever, however you wish to categorize it, in economic wealth, in standard of living, in military power, in superpower status in the world. There isn't a country that has ever been like we are. There isn't a country that's ever even been close. There isn't a country now that is close. We are the first country in the history of the world to enshrine in our founding the principle that the people of the country are free by virtue of their creation, and their rights come from God, not from other men or governments. And we are the first and the only country founded and created, enshrined with the values that it is the people who run this country, and elections are the mechanism by which we choose the people who will lead it. And what holds this together? All it is a piece of paper, a series, however many pieces of paper the Constitution is. That's it. Throughout our nearly 250 years, we have had a majority of our population accept and agree and obey with the notion that the Constitution is the defining authority of our country, that it is the glue that holds us together as a culture, as a society. It's rather stunning to me that it's lasted this long, because the only way it can work is if a majority of the people in this country, including the people elected, honor it. What is the penalty for not honoring it? Well, we're seeing right now there isn't one. In the Civil War, if you didn't honor it, Abe Lincoln came after you and wiped the floor with you until you agreed to stop the secession and rejoin the Union. Well, what penalty is there today for spitting on it, for ignoring it? There isn't any. I don't quite express this. It's amazing to me that we do not require a national military or police force to keep people in line. It has been nothing but the sworn fealty to that document the cherished belief in that cherished document of how great it is. Well, where we are right, the Democrat Party, the American left, is demonstrating it doesn't believe any such thing. It doesn't want to have to respect the authority of that document, and it's in the process of demonstrating that they don't. Elections don't mean diddly squat to them. Public opinion doesn't mean diddly squat to them. The only thing that matters to them is their authority. Anybody challenging their authority, there's no negotiation, there's no debate, there's no attempt to persuade. All there is an effort to destroy anybody who rejects their authority. When their leader happens to win the election, there is total respect for that leader's authority. When they don't win the election, the only thing they're devoted to is destroying the leader with whom they disagree. There's no effort to work together. There's no compromise. There's no bipartisanship. All of that is it's a giant myth. And my analogy was there's something else like that on the planet today, and it's called Sharia Islam. If you don't accept the principle of Sharia Islam, well, you know what can happen to you. And there's no compromise. In this analogy, the GOP, you and me, we're the infidels, and the Democrats are the Sharia Islam believers. And they're not interested in what we think, just like Sharia Islam doesn't care what you think of various aspects of Sharia. If you don't respect it, you are going to be dealt with one way or the other. But your ideas and your heart and your mind don't matter one hell of a bit. And that's where we are. And you see it every day here in the way the Democrat Party and the media and the left is conducting itself. What is their number one objective today? To get rid of the people who won the election because they do not respect or even acknowledge. It's not even a matter of respect. They don't even acknowledge the authority that the Constitution vests in the winners of elections. Now, I know politics has always been a battle for power, but this is my point. For all of the years of this great country, whatever opposing political factions we've had, at the end of the day, there has been an acknowledgement that there's something greater than either of our movements, and it's the Constitution. And there's no giant gun enforcing it. There's no giant military making people obey it. Some might say that what we're in the midst of is a movement committing treason against this Constitution. What is the way treason is dealt with in the Constitution? Well, whatever it is not being used against the left. And folks, when you stop and think about it, try to express it as cleanly as I can, it's inarguable. There's no bipartisanship. There's no understanding. There's no compromise. It's simply a lack of respect and acknowledgement of the authority that the Constitution vests in the way our politics is handled in this country. Okay, for those of you curious, Dustin Johnson has withdrawn from the Masters. He fell down the steps in his rental home in Augusta and did some bad damage to his lower back yesterday. He tried to play today, showed up on the range, showed up at the first tee, tried it, couldn't make it. So he walked off the first tee and has withdrawn. And that's the only spoiler alert that I'm going to provide you. A lot of double bogeys today. The wind in Augusta is off the charts, and it's chilly, like 60 degrees. That's it, my friends. We're wrapped for today. Another great excursion to broadcast excellence, and we've got another one tomorrow, Open Line Friday. As always, thank you so much for being here and for staying here. And we expect more of the same tomorrow.